Hello, 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 everyone. How are we today? Today's going to be quite a special joint live. I am going live with the beautiful Inacota Luna and Aubrey Abaxis. They are her Instagram profile names. She will be joining in on this live shortly. And once she is, I'm going to be joining her into the stream and then we'll be able to share her story. Today is all for her and for me to reach out to you guys to do some readings and that if you wish. I would like to ask for a small donation if absolutely possible, and then that way I can actually split the funds between myself and the beautiful Aubrey. And once she's online, we can get right into this. So today what's going to be happening is we're going to be talking about her life story essentially over the last year. She's had quite the turbulent year. She's moved multiple states. She's had to give birth to a baby in a different state. She's had to move states because of all of the pregnancy laws and everything that are actually over in America. They are terribly, terribly, terribly unfair. And when she does jump on, she can let us know her entire story. Not only, last night she was also doing a drum circle with her tribe, and I cannot wait to actually ask her about that as well. Oh, she's here. I'm going to add her into the stream now. So are you going to use that profile page, or would you like to use your Aubrey one, love? Just whichever one you feel like is the best one to put into the live stream. I really don't mind. All right, so this one it is then. Oh. Whichever profile you deem is the best one to do, just send the request through and they'll just invite you straight in. I'm going to feed my little virtual pet and then we can get into this. I'm so excited. I've been wanting to go live with you for so long and I'm so glad that I can actually now do it now that I have so much time for myself. There we go. Here it comes. All right, fingers crossed this should be working. I figured out these bugs the other day. There we go. There we go. I have figured it out. I finally figured out all of these bugs the other day with my live the other day with Veronica and Rebecca.
That's great. I
Oh my
saw
God,
a
Jared's
little
here. Hi,
spirit.
Jared.
Oh,
How have you been? Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry, I just got excited because I saw Jared pop in. I'm like, oh.
you're fine. I just saw a spirit like fly past you, so that was fun.
Oh, there's so much energy out here today. Like I have actually gotten so much done this morning. It's incredible. I've filled up my boot of the car twice with firewood. So I've literally got firewood for the
Ooh,
rest of the week now. So while this is healing,
yeah.
I think I should be able to take this off next Sunday. I should have myself enough firewood now to get me through. I am
Burning
definitely
all the
staying warm.
time.
I think, let's find out.
Hello,
It
hello,
is 26
everyone.
degrees in my house.
That's crazy.
25.9 and outside is 13.6. See, this is my little weather station. It tells me everything I need to do.
That's awesome.
It also tracks my rain and absolutely everything. So now that you're live, I was just explaining briefly before you jumped on how you've had an absolutely turbulent last year. You've been going through so much, not to mention with your pregnancy and that, and also reconnecting to your tribe and moving
Yeah.
states. I'm actually just going to give you the floor right now, and I'm going to completely and utterly and throw the key away and let you explain your story in as much detail as you wish. And
Oh,
I just for anyone that is watching right now, just quickly, this story is triggering, and it could be potentially triggering for a lot of you as well, because we all know that, unfortunately, in America right now, the laws are absolutely horrendous, and your rights
yeah.
don't even get me started. But I'm going to give the floor to you now, and if anybody is triggered, I do apologize, and we are here for you if you need to talk.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. It's a crazy time in America, but when is it not lately?
That's very
Oh,
true.
like these last couple years have just been like, what is going on?
Well, feel free to share your story because this live is all for you today and all for anybody. Also, if anybody in the stream wants to, I've got all my cards here set up. I don't know what you're
Yeah.
going to use for your means of communication, but we are ready to help anybody as well at any point during the live.
Yay! Yes, yes. So,
Yeah,
my
so I'll give you
story.
back the floor.
My story is I guess I'll try to condense it.
Oh, you don't have to condense it if you don't want to. Like I'm happy to be live as long as you need. I've set
Okay.
the rest of my entire day for this.
Oh my gosh.
Like
Yay.
half hour, 3 hours. I don't care. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's whenever you're ready to finish.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well,
Oh, I just one last quick thing. I'm going to put the link tree in, so if anybody would like to send some donations, I'm actually going to split the donations between myself and this lovely lady to help her out as much as I can.
I love and appreciate you so much. So, okay. I I am, how do I say this? I was married for seven
Yep.
years. Um, and battling multiple health conditions. And I've had
And
over
what health
16
what health
surgeries.
conditions are you fighting?
So lupus is
Yep.
the main contributor, which is an autoimmune disorder. It
Yeah,
attacks your
feel free to
body.
explain that because we don't actually have a lot
Yeah.
of lupus here in Australia. We do have it, but it's not actually medically recognized,
Wow.
unfortunately. Yes.
That's such a shame.
They do not actually take it seriously over here. So feel free to
That's so
explain to us
sad.
what lupus actually is because you'd have a much better understanding of it than we actually do. All I know,
Yeah.
like I said to you the other day, is it comes from ticks.
hmm Yeah, it can. And so lupus is like an autoimmune disorder. Um, what that means is that instead of protecting your body, it attacks different organs in your body. Um, there is no cure for lupus.
So when it attacks the immune system, is it the white blood cells that are attacking the immune system, or is it actually the lupus virus itself? Like how does it actually attack the immune system?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Neither am I.
I guess we'll have to research. Is it the white blood cells or?
Exactly. I have a feeling it could be a contributing factor of potentially both. Like I don't know much about lupus and
Yeah,
I may be a medical professional, but I am not qualified to talk about this sort of stuff. But from what I am aware in health, like it could very much be that it's reprogramming your white blood cells to actually attack everything because they're what attacks bacteria, infections, and all
yeah.
of that sort of stuff.
I do agree with that. So, yeah, so that's what it does. It attacks your body. Um, in my case, it affects my lungs. I do have a collapsed lung.
Yeah,
Um,
feel free. How did that actually come about? Like you were telling me the other day a small story of it, but feel free to elaborate on how
yeah,
lupus actually managed to collapse your lung. Because being such an immune disease, like, and having such a significant impact, am I right in saying that it could affect other organs in your body as well, not just your lungs?
exactly. It could affect anything. Um, I'm most predominantly in your kidneys.
Yep.
Some people they have to go on dialysis because it causes kidney failure. Um, some people, I know someone in a wheelchair because of it.
Oh my God,
Um,
how did that happen? Like, if I may ask, what actually caused them to be in a wheelchair, and how did lupus cause that?
because it also affects the joints.
I
So
did not know that, like, as in, like, it deteriorates the cartilage or deteriorates the bone density. How so?
in some cases, yeah, it can cause like osteoporosis. Like,
Oh my God.
okay, lupus is kind of like a gateway drug. Like it starting with lupus, like it causes a whole bunch of other stuff to
So it's
manifest
like
and
being
like
diagnosed with ADHD. ADHD comes with everything else. ADHD is never alone, but at the same time, it's like lupus. It's the whole like, okay, if we get on top of this, then we might be able to get on top of everything else.
Yes,
And me
exactly.
being
Yeah.
severely ADHD, like, I completely understand that. And I'm just going to quickly grab my coffee while you continue.
So,
Perfect
yeah, with
example
the
of it right
lupus,
there.
yeah, so it just like caused a whole bunch of problems. So I just kept getting sick with pneumonia back to back. The doctors, instead of treating the cause or the problem, they just put a band-aid on it. And so with that
And by
neglect,
Band-Aid, what do you mean by that?
it was just like antibiotics,
Yep.
um, like antibiotics and steroids instead of treating the actual problem.
And what
And
would that cause then? Because if it was band-aided, what was the benefit of being on them and to not being on them? Like, how did that actually affect the healing recovery of the lupus? And why were you seeking further treatment? Because, as you said, it band-aided it.
exactly. So what the Band-Aid did was it did not fix the problem. So the problem continued to persist, which caused me to have a collapsed lung, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
Like
so that
it
makes
just
sense.
caused the
So in
damage.
other words, I'm actually quite familiar with pleurocytic lung conditions and stuff like that. So am I
Yeah,
right in saying that when you were constantly going through pneumonia with lupus, and the fact that you were on steroids and antibiotics was to potentially push all of the fluid and all of the infection out of the lungs, but because it was only band-aided and your lungs weren't potentially drained or actually looked after correctly, is that potentially the reason why your lungs collapsed because of the band-aiding? Because they weren't
yeah,
actually treating it appropriately, but they were just hoping that your lungs would clear themselves.
yeah, exactly.
Doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
Right? Like we should be the
That
doctors.
well, for me to be a doctor, I have to go back to university for another 3.5 years. But I could do
Oh,
it, but I just don't think I want to.
exactly. I
It's
don't
it's
blame
it's
you.
too much stress. Like being a qualified sexual health professional is hard enough as it is, and then
Yes.
because the amount of judgment you actually get from the health sectors themselves, because they're like, "Oh, you're not a proper nurse," and I'm like, "Look, I may not be a proper nurse, but I can still tell you more than anything about how immune
Yeah.
systems work." Because being a sexual health worker, like I have quite the, I don't understand lupus as much, but I have a good grasp on it because of how HIV works.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
HIV is an autoimmune disease,
Yeah.
very much like
Yeah.
lupus, and it turns the cells into spike proteins, which then start attacking your entire immune system and then causes you to, like you did, get pneumonia. Like I had a client
Crazy.
and he is now on, oh, what do you call those machines? To help him breathe because his
Ventilators.
lungs don't work. Ventilator, that's the word. He is on a constant ventilator and he's in his 80s. I won't give any names or any
Mhm.
details like that, obviously, due to confidentiality,
Of
but
course.
it can cause so many issues like that. And when you've got HIV as well, would this be the same with lupus? Because you're an immune deficient, you could get a cold at a drop of a hat like that and get
Yes.
incredibly sick
Yes.
because
Yes.
you've got no defense mechanisms against fighting off foreign bacteria.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
Lupus, yep, that's okay. That helps me get a better grasp of it as well. And it might help some of the viewers get a better grasp as well.
Yeah. That's
But
exactly.
good.
A common cold can take, like, some people, it takes them 3 to 5 days. Someone with lupus, it takes them like 1 to 2 weeks.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Just for a cold.
Yes.
That's,
I was
that would
in
be
the hospital
horrible.
with pneumonia for like 2 weeks at a time.
And I remember you saying when we were talking the other day as well, like this whole process lasted for about 3 years and you didn't even know your lung had collapsed. Am I right in saying?
Exactly. Yeah,
So
I
feel free
didn't
to
find
explain
out.
that as well.
Okay, so this all started with the pneumonia in 2014, and I did not find out until 2017 when I was coughing up blood that I had a collapsed lung. They
Oh
did
my
a
God.
procedure. Yeah, they did a procedure where they like put a camera down my throat and like went down
Yep.
there.
Can I ask
And
probably a very like question as well about the blood in particular? Because a lot of
yeah,
immune disease differences, when you were coughing up the blood, what color was it, curiously? Because that can be a sign of infection as well, and it can tell you a lot about it too. And your doctors may or may not have explained that to you.
No, I had no
Okay,
idea.
so here's the
So it was
thing
like
about blood.
dark red.
When dark, oh, that means it's deep, deep.
Yeah.
So this is the thing about
Oh,
blood. When blood comes out bright red, it's generally very oxygenated and very close to the wound. And if you're coughing it up and it's bright red, it's most likely sarcophagal. If it's a deep, dark, black, brown, or murky color, generally that is indicative of it being deep within the body. The darker it is, the longer it takes to go through the body. Therefore, the less oxygen it comes out. Therefore, the less bright it is,
that's
and the more
crazy.
coagulated it becomes.
Oh my gosh. Like you know more than my doctors. That's like mind blowing to me.
I like to research, and as a traveler and a gypsy, I'm not a qualified naturopath in that, but we have been treating people for generations as essentially
Yeah.
almost like your shamans, and that's something that we'll get into later as well as talking about your tribe. But we'll
Right.
go back to the lupus and the sarcophagal treatment that you had to go through. So explain that a little bit more in detail. Like how did that work, and what was done to help you diagnose your collapsed lung?
Okay, so so I complained to my doctor. I took pictures of me coughing up the blood,
Yep.
and I went to my what do they call it? Pulmonologist.
Yeah, a
Um
pharmacologist.
like a pulmonary doctor.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
um I went to her and she did like x-rays, CT scans, and it showed on the report. And so then she did a bronchoscopy, which is when they put like a tube
Down
down
with
my
the
throat
camera.
and they went in there. Yeah, and so that's how they confirmed like she has, because at first they were skeptical. They're like, "You're too young to have this," and I'm like, "You need to
But
investigate."
you do have lupus though, so age does not become a
Exactly.
factor when you have an immune disease. Like I've
Thank
been chronically
you.
ill since the day I was like, I've had a walking stick since I was 16 years old. Yep, I've had a walking stick since I was 16 years old because I can have serious flare-ups in my hip and my lower back and my spine, which essentially cause me to be bedridden. So age is never a beneficial factor when you have serious chronic illnesses.
Yes. Thank you. Because I
You're
feel like
welcome.
doctors discriminate. They're like,
Doctors
"Oh,
do
you're too young.
heavily
You can't
discriminate.
have."
You can,
Yes.
as a health professional, or retired health professional, I can't actually claim that title anymore. Your job is not to discriminate. Your job is actually to listen and
Yes.
diagnose. You can't
Yes.
go in there with a preconceived idea, because if you do, somebody could walk out with fibromyalgia that have been in chronic pain for most of their life, and you've just gone,
Yes.
they're 20 years old, they don't have fibro, they're just fine. But it
Yes.
turns out,
Yep.
just because they're 20 doesn't mean squat.
Yes. Ah, it's
But
annoying
yeah,
because in
it's,
America, that's very common for people to be sick, chronically ill for many, many years, and then the
correct me
doctors
if I'm
find
wrong.
out
This is
many years
quite the
later.
stigma that America has. Is that because the doctors like to make the money? They band-aid, band-aid, band-aid to keep you coming
Yes.
back because you don't, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't have health insurance and stuff like that in America,
Yes.
and you also don't have public benefits. Well, you do have public benefits, but I'm not actually sure how they work. You could probably explain that to me better, but you only
Yeah.
get that for a short period though, don't you?
Okay. So now it's mandatory for you to have health insurance. The health insurance
What if you
costs
can't afford it?
hundreds of dollars. It costs hundreds of dollars. If you can't afford it, um, they supposedly have free health care for the less fortunate, but it's extremely difficult to attain that.
Yeah.
So,
So in other words, then, if
also,
you
if you
lose your
don't,
health insurance, you're essentially, you die.
you get fined also. They
No.
fine you. Yeah, they fine you. They punish you for not paying hundreds of dollars for healthcare.
But that's a breach of
Shitty
basic
healthcare.
human rights, because if you don't want to have healthcare, you don't have to pay for it. In Australia, we have healthcare systems and we have private providers and stuff like that. Our public healthcare is absolutely incredible over here. Most of my
Yeah.
surgeries and everything that I've ever gone through in my life has all been through the public sector. I've never had to go private, although now that I'm no longer on the government benefits, I actually might have to start paying for private health insurance or hope that Medicare covers me for certain things. But for an X-ray, it was going to cost me $200 and I was getting a rebate of $30.
Wow.
But if I was on the healthcare system, it's completely free.
That's amazing.
Everything's free, even surgery.
Wow.
Like
Everybody
I've
has
had
better healthcare than
yeah,
America, and
America's
America's not even a
healthcare.
third world country. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I don't know what to say about America's healthcare. I don't think I can actually say anything nice about it.
Me either. So
Mm,
ridiculous. Like people here have cancer and different health conditions, and they go outside of America to get
for
the
treatment.
health care.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've had so many people already. I've had about 5 or 6 people in the last, I think, 6 to 8 months in America reach out to me for health information because they can't get it in America. And majority of them have been STD related questions, and I'm more than happy to answer them. So if any of you in my overall community feel like reaching out to me in regards to that as well, I am a health professional when it comes to sexual health, and I am more than happy to answer those questions and help you try and diagnose and see a doctor and then go on your way. I'm always here to help with that sort of stuff when it comes to sexual related questions because they are my qualifications. But it's just yeah, people shouldn't have to be reaching out to me in Australia from America because they're too scared to go to their doctor.
Yes. The Western culture is just like so backwards. So backwards.
It's
They're
very backwards,
against,
but at the same time, the Western culture is also very beneficial as well. Like, look at the collective information sharing. Like, you can't say it's all bad. Like, the education from the Western is brilliant, but at the same time, it does neglect so much Eastern core.
yes. Yep. Yep.
And getting
Like,
into that as well, like, Eastern medication is what you've been now using to treat your lupus, isn't it?
yes.
Phil, let's go into that. Let's elaborate on the naturopathic medicine that you're actually now using to treat your lupus because you're no longer really requiring, as you said prior, the Band-Aid.
Exactly. Ugh, it is, yeah. You know, it's funny because um it's like the shaman sickness. This is like a rite of passage that shamans have to go through is that shaman sickness. You have to heal yourself
I
before you can
remember
heal
hearing
others.
that in the the African tribes. A lot of
Ooh.
African tribes. Yes, there was a story that I was reading about a African shaman who went to mental health asylums, and he was going through the asylum, going, if these people were back home, we would sit them in a circle and we would let them envelop everything. And most people with psychosis, BPD, over in Africa end up actually being the shamans because, like you're saying, it's the shaman sickness. You get
Oh
a
my
health
goodness.
problem and you have to learn to overcome this severe issue in order to be able to practice or become who you
Yeah.
are. And then as you get better, you start to heal. However, I will never heal because mine are all joint bone related. But most of my mental disorders that I had growing up, except for the ADHD, I'm completely on top of now.
Yes.
And that's also to help with what I'm actually doing over the next couple of weeks as well. But let's get back to your lupus story. Like what Western medicine, Eastern medicine are you on now to help treat your lupus, and how effective is it actually working?
It
And if
is
you've got it, feel free
working.
to show it.
I do. This is like a lifesaver, and I highly recommend it's Dr. Christopher's
Yep.
lung and
And
bronchial formula.
feel free to write that into the comments so anyone that comes into the live can
Yeah.
actually see it as well. But so what's actually in that? Because I remember we were discussing some of the contents the other day, and I know that one of my very traditional and special herbs are in there, marshmallow,
Yes. Marshmallow root is the first thing here.
which means
This
it's the
is
highest potency quality of it, which means, and the good thing about marshmallow is what it does, the reason why it's in that bronchial solution is It's known as a cold cure. It lines and helps essentially stop all of the inflammation and the swelling and push the mucus off the body. That's what marshmallow
That's
does. And
incredible.
it's an incredible cough syrup when it's boiled down.
Which I had no idea until I started to use this, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And what
Um,
other herbs are in there as well?
so it has mullein leaf, chickweed herb,
Yep.
lobelia herb, lungwort, and pleurisy root, just like you said.
Yep. Which is
All
all
natural.
brilliant, all natural, and all concentrated. And you take about 5 meals before a meal, isn't it? 5 to 10 meals? I'd probably
Yes,
not
yes,
recommend any more than that, even though the label does say up to 15. But due to the lobelia
exactly.
root, that's what worries me because you can very,
Hmm.
very easily get a lobelia root toxicity.
Which is good to know for the general public.
This is very true, and for anybody watching this as well. Oh, so now that we've discussed your lupus, let's get into your pregnant story. This is the big trigger. Like, how far have we gone into this live? So I know that the timestamp on here, so I can. Unfortunately, I can't see the timestamp. Can you?
Let me see. I cannot.
26 minutes. So I'll put that into my warning afterwards. But let's get into your pregnancy story and everything that you've gone through with that and your ex-husband, moving states, having to come to your tribe, meeting a shaman, and then giving birth with all of the women. Like, I would love to hear all of that. And no doubt everybody online would love to hear it too. And if anybody is triggered, I am so terribly sorry. This is going to be a very hard story for you to hear. It involves racism. It involves sexism. It involves fleeing for one's life and for the life of their own daughter, as this being you, and having to find family again. So I'm going to leave the floor open to you now, and just feel free to share the story wherever you feel comfortable starting.
Okay. Okay. Where should I start? Well, I guess it starts with the lupus. So it again, it wreaks havoc all over your body. So, in my case, it did cause me to have endometriosis.
Oh, wow. So you are very,
Yeah.
very, very, very lucky to have even had Luna.
Exactly. I had like in total, I lost count at 16 surgeries. Like I've had so many
Cysts
procedures
removed.
and
Wow.
yeah, like so much procedures and surgeries and stuff that the doctors said to
You'd never
naturally
have.
have a baby. Yeah. And so I had never planned my life to have a baby whatsoever, and I was okay with that.
Yep.
Um, so when I found out that I was pregnant, I was in complete shock. And
As you would be, because if you've gone through 16 surgeries for endometriosis, the scar tissue itself would be absolutely phenomenal. Like, the likelihood of
yeah,
you getting pregnant, correct me if I'm wrong, would be about 20 to 30%.
it was very low. Like we even saw like an IVF specialist. That's like a whole other story. Like it was going to
Well,
be
we've
so
got lots
expensive.
of time for that.
It was going to be so expensive to have this baby, and then they were like, "Oh, it's not guaranteed." And it's like $12,000. And
Per
so,
round.
yeah, that's US dollars. That's with
So
insurance.
12,000 US dollars would be approximately 24,000 Australian dollars. Because your
Crazy.
funds, the easiest way to do the maths between our countries is just double it.
That's
Because our
crazy.
dollar is only worth half of your dollar on average. Yeah. I would never. So when I go to America, if I was to say transfer my currency to America, I'm losing money.
Wow.
I'm losing a
That's
lot
so
of money to actually go
crazy.
to America. Yep.
Oh
And
my
I don't
goodness.
mean that to be rude, but that's why I'm going to Europe first. Because I realized the conversion rate and I'm like, oh, the only way this would be feasible is if, and see, this is the funny thing about America as well. Like, for me to get my money's worth, I've got to go to Canada, then into America and convert my funds. Otherwise, I'll end up losing on average $7,500 if I come over with 20.
That's crazy.
But if I go over Canada, I could end up losing between $1,000 to $2,000 because the conversion between Canadian dollars and Australian dollars is almost the same, and Canadian to
Wow.
American is quite similar as well. So I'd have to transfer from Canadian to American to actually get my money's worth.
Oh
And
my
the only way I
God.
can legally do that as well is to fly into Canada and then go across the border. But if I was to fly straight to
This is
America,
amazing.
it's ridiculous. But going back to it, like
That's money.
$24,000 for an IVF round per round. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money for something that's not like guaranteed.
Exactly. And with
And
such a
so,
low, wow.
yeah, so, we had in our minds that we had been married for 7 years.
Yeah.
This whole surgeries and journey, like that was the beginning of our relationship. So the whole 7 years we had um no mishaps, no baby. And so
Yeah.
it was a complete shock and not something that we had planned for. We planned to never have them.
Because yeah, it's
Because
like
we
with having such severe trauma on your uterus and that, it's almost impossible for you to have it. And then IVF declaring the fact that you couldn't have a baby, like it's very, very unlikely. The fact that you even got pregnant is just such a surprise to all of us now. Now that I know this, I'm just like, wow, she is such
yeah.
a blessed baby.
And then that's where spirit comes in because I feel like if God really wants this soul to come into this world, like he will make the
Anything
impossible
happen.
possible. Exactly.
Exactly.
And so that's how I feel about her.
I'm definitely seeing that now. Definitely seeing that. So I'll let you get back with the story now. So you've gone through the IVF and 7 years of mishaps, and then you got naturally pregnant. Correct me if I'm wrong to recap on this for everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
by complete surprise. The crazy thing is, I had a dream, as many of us intuitives do.
Yep.
I had a dream back in 2020, where I wrote in my diary that I woke up from a dream. I had a dream I was giving birth, but my ex wasn't there. I'm not gonna say his name. Um,
Don't need to.
my ex, yeah, my ex wasn't there, and that's all that I put. That's all that I could remember from this dream. So that was in 2020. We're in 2022, and
He's
that's
not in the
exactly
picture
what
anymore,
happened.
and that's exactly what happened. Yeah. So going into the birth now, that in itself is a fascinating story. Like, what did you have to go through because of just the horrible American health system? The journey you had to go through just to give birth to Luna?
Oh my
Explain.
God. The whole story, so she was, I want to say immaculate conception because she was like, somehow she still manifested herself when she wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
Scientists say, doctors say, sorry. She
That's
manifested herself.
you're right in saying that. That is the scientific diagnosis. That's why I went like approximately 30% before. Like that's what I was thinking. Like thinking scientifically, that's how one
Yeah.
meant to think.
Um, yeah, so she was a complete surprise. And I remember, I remember like I was in shock and then I started crying because I'm like, oh my God, what is my ex gonna think? Like he's gonna be so angry. I don't even know how to
And
tell
he
him. And
was.
like,
If
yeah,
I
and
remember,
so
oh
like
my
it's
god.
supposed to be, yeah, it's supposed to be like a moment that you're happy and like rejoicing, you're in joy. And I was freaking out. And so he wasn't, I tried to make it, I remember I tried to make it special. I remember
Mhm.
going to the store and buying like little baby clothes and
Oh,
I remember writing him like a heartfelt, like I wear my heart on my sleeve and I'm
yeah.
like a
I'm
hopeless
pregnant.
romantic. Yeah, I wrote like a heartfelt, like a whole page, like we've gone through
Oh,
so much and I love you so much and we're going to now make our love um even more stronger. And then like so I it was like in a little treasure box.
mhm.
And so when he opened it and read the note, there was like little baby clothes. and he still was like, "What does this mean?" And I
Are you joking?
gave him, yeah, I gave him like the pregnancy test. I actually took several,
Yeah,
and he was like, he went through like 12 stages of grief, like the roller coaster of
yep,
emotions.
yep.
Like at first he was like angry, and then he was like freaking out, like, oh my God, how are we going to afford this? And then like he went through all of the emotions, and it just like backfired on me, and I'm like, okay,
Oh, did
this
it
was
ever?
not,
Like speaking, like, and going on his mother as well. Like that's another thing as well.
yeah. So
Oh,
his mother, okay, his parents, I had no idea they were racist until he asked, like, not that he asked their permission. He
well,
asked permission from
you
my father.
did in a way because of how they treated your mother.
That was after.
Oh, I
So
thought it was prior.
no, that was actually recently.
Oh, oh, well, that's another story as well. Like I mentioned before, that there is a
There's
lot of
so much,
racism
but
involved in this. But so I'll let you get
yeah.
back to it.
Movie to my life is coming soon.
Book autobiography. Bye.
I actually thought like over the summer, last summer, I was like, oh, I'm finally done with this book, and then this happens. And I'm like, ah, but at the same
And
time,
that
like looking back, it's been like what, 10 months? I'm like, this is some good content.
this is some very good content. So let's talk about this content now. So going back to the mother and him going through all the 12 stages of grief, what happened there
He
on
went through the
afterward?
12 stages. So then we went to the doctor to make sure that it was real. They did an ultrasound. They were like,
Yep.
"Oh my God." She was like a little ball, like a marble. And we were like,
And that's so
and
exciting because
so,
having endometriosis as well, like you could have very, very easily had an ectopic pregnancy, which is actually a pregnancy
yeah.
in the tubes because of all the
Hmm.
scarring and everything like that. The fact that it actually ended up straight in your womb, it's one in a million.
I'm telling you, this was like God divinely orchestrated.
Absolutely, because I've got
So,
three friends with endometriosis and they cannot fall pregnant as hard as they try.
like I said, it's been 7 years.
Hmm.
So, okay, so his mother.
Yep.
So I went through the 12 stages with him. That was so fun. Um, his mother, who I didn't know that they were racist until after we got married, and that's like another story.
Well, like
There's
I've
a lot
said,
of
I've got all day for you.
the short version is that he asked my father for the blessing to marry me, and my father said
Yep.
yes. So he went back to his parents and said he got the blessing to marry me. His parents were like, we don't want any mixed grandbabies, but they said the N word. Um, and they like all hell broke loose, and then
Wait, so
they
they call
said,
Native Americans niggers?
yeah. Well, they call everyone who isn't like them
Okay, that is incredibly
derogatory names.
offensive because you're not even like, and I don't mean this to be rude, you're not black. You're olive like myself.
Anything that is not blonde hair and blue eyes to them is like less than.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize they were that severely racist. I know your story
Again,
and
I
I know
didn't
what you
either.
went through. But yeah, feel free to continue on that as well. But I was just a little shocked at that. I didn't realize that Indians were called that word.
Yeah. It's like, we've had this conversation several times where they've told me, like, I hope you get deported and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, me?
Deported? But
Yeah.
wow.
I'm like, deported back to here? Back to here? Yeah, it's
Oh,
been fun dealing with them, having them as in-laws.
do you still
So,
deal with them?
in a way, kind of. Well, we'll get to
Ugh.
it.
We'll get to it. Yes, let's keep going.
I don't directly associate with them, but they try to contact people who are in
To get
communication with
information. Yeah.
me. Yeah, to get information,
But
but also to like spread their agenda.
misinformation. Hmm.
Yeah. So so I knew telling them that, I'm having a baby. Oh, I just saw another spirit.
The spirit's probably like, you finished your coffee, you might need another one.
Um, so I kind of did similar what I did to my ex. Like I made them a box, and I also had like custom t-shirts made for them saying, "Surprise, you're gonna be grandparents." Like I tried to make it special for them,
Mhm.
and again that backfired.
How
Um,
so?
so okay, they opened the box, and at first they were like in shock, and then the mother, I'm not gonna claim her as my mother-in-law.
Mhm.
The mother cried for like 5 seconds, and then she says, "You're not gonna die during childbirth, right?" And I,
No.
yeah, and I said, "No, I'm gonna have a healthy birth process." And then she went on to like list different scenarios of how I'm going to die. One of them being, I hope you get shot in the head by a firing squad. Like, who thinks of these
Oh
things
my
unless you've
God.
thought about it like over and over? Yeah. Like
That's
she said that
that's
to my face
that's almost
in front of,
sociopathic.
yeah, they are sociopathic. They were diagnosed as sociopathic. They refuse to go to therapy.
Oh my God.
But yeah, all three of them. And so she said this in front of her son, and he was just quiet the whole time. And he didn't even stick
So he
up
didn't
for
even
me.
defend you.
Yeah. And so my radars went off. It was like alert, alert. And so I remember us driving back home from that encounter, and he says, "Oh, that went pretty good." And I'm like, "On what
Pretty
planet do you
good.
think this is okay?"
Exactly.
Yeah, I was like, "Your mother like had a list of different ways I'm gonna die." And he's like, "Oh, she's just looking out for your best interest." And I'm like,
No, she's not.
delusional. I did not feel safe. So, I have a very close relationship with his like extended family,
Mhm.
and like his
And correct me if I'm
grandma,
wrong, is this
his
like his sister as well?
no,
No,
like
no,
his
not sister.
grandma, he's an only child, kind of.
Okay.
He has like he has four stepsisters who remind me of the stepsisters from Cinderella.
I knew you were gonna
So
say that.
that's why you're an intuitive.
I'm just sitting there, I'm like, four stepsisters. Yep, this is gonna go right down the Cinderella one. Now, which one's the ugly
Yeah.
stepsister?
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that.
Um, so I'm really close to his extended family, like his aunt and uncle and his grandmother.
Well, that's
So
great for
I did
Luna
not,
as well as she gets to grow up because she still gets to interact with her biological family.
yeah. So for whatever reason, his mother was totally against this. And it's like, that's your family. Why? You don't make any sense. But yeah, she was totally against it, was throwing a complete fit. I did not feel safe. I didn't feel safe with my own husband at the time. Like I
Mm.
was sleeping with one eye open because the fact that he found nothing wrong with his mother killing me off in different
That's
ways.
not even the worst part about what she did. Like, explain what else she tried to actually do as you progressed into your pregnancy with Luna.
Hmm.
And I remember actually having a phone call with you about that in November last year when I had just recently
Yeah.
come out of surgery for my health
Yep.
conditions. And
I
like,
was scared for my
let's go
life.
into detail. I'll let you go into detail with that because this is your story, not my story to tell. And this is, I'm going to say right now, this will be a potentially big trigger warning for a lot of people, this story that's about to come through. So I
Mhm.
want you all to be aware. So I'm just going to write down the timestamp for that one as well. And with that, I'm going to give you the space to tell this very, very triggering story. This makes me very, very angry, this part.
Yeah. So I was sleeping with one eye open because he found absolutely nothing wrong with his mother killing me off. And mind you, she had just opened a box. She just found out we were pregnant. 5 seconds later, she has a list of ways I'm gonna die. That's not somebody like a normal person's reaction to pregnancy
No.
news. This is somebody that is like, you wanted me dead, and you've thought of these very thoroughly
Not only
scenarios
did
of
she
me to
want you
die.
dead, she wanted to steal your baby.
Yeah, that was the other thing is that, so I told
And
her,
this is the big trigger warning that I was mentioning before. Like this is where it's going to get triggering for a lot of people, especially me, being a gypsy and being technically part of stolen generations and knowing what the indigenous of Australia have had to go through as well, and not knowing half of my culture. Like I'm going to give the floor back to you now, but this is a big trigger warning for people with a background like myself, or just any indigenous or native background.
yes, yes. So, yeah, she said if I don't die, then her and her son will raise the baby together without me in the picture. And it was just like, I'm like, what on earth is going on? Like,
And the whole
what
reason behind
rational
that was
person?
because you're Native American, isn't it? Like the whole reason
It,
behind that is she didn't want a mixed baby.
yep. She didn't want a mixed baby, so she wanted to cause its life hell. At that time, I didn't know it was a girl. I had that intuition it was a girl, but we didn't get it confirmed until months later.
Yeah.
But she wanted to cause the baby's life hell, because I wasn't dead.
And
And
because you were mixed, and correct me if I'm
yeah,
wrong as well, she had a lot of issue with that because your ex had always dated mixed race people before you as well,
but
in
she
a way
never,
to
she
almost
didn't tell me.
spite his mother.
Yeah, yeah, he didn't tell me that until after we were married. So here's the crazy thing is that this Prince Charming, this guy that I fell in love with, I did not find out so much stuff. And we had dated for like 2, almost 3 years before getting married. And I did not find out a lot of stuff until after we were married. Like I was already locked in and committed, and like
Being a
it was like a
divorcee,
can
I
of worms
really
exploded.
understand that. Once you get married, the whole can of worms exploded. I
Yes.
The amount of affairs that I found out that my ex had, like, my God, once I got
Oh
married, I was
my,
like, what have I done?
that's like another thing. Oh my gosh. So much
Oh,
stuff
is
has
there
happened.
affairs as well?
There
No.
was.
So
Yeah.
while you're
That's like,
pregnant, while you're trying to fix things with your ex, while the mother-in-law is saying all of this, he's also sleeping around. This is just,
yeah.
and this is the first 4 months of your pregnancy, to 5 months of your pregnancy, wasn't it, where all of this was
Yes,
happening? It's
it
during the
was.
gestation period where you cannot be under stress, especially having endometriosis, having a very low
Yes.
likelihood of actually being able to even hold the baby. You could have lost Luna at any given point, and it was 4 or 5 months before you fled.
It was month 4. Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, his mother said all this stuff. I was in fear of my life. I remember coming home that day because he said in the car, "Oh, it was good. She was just looking out for your best interest." I was like, I cannot trust. Like, that was the moment that he lost my trust. I was
Hmm.
like, the fact that you don't value my life, somebody's telling you they have intentions of me dying, and that doesn't make you protective over me. It doesn't raise any red
That should
flags. Like,
instantly make him protective, especially the fact that you're carrying his child.
exactly. Listen, it gets more intense. But in that moment, I was in fear, like the red flags were going. So as soon as we got home, I remember running upstairs and I got on my laptop and I typed up what happened and I sent several copies to people because I was at fear, like they're going to
I
hurt me.
remember receiving one of those copies. I actually remember
Yeah,
calling you. I remember
I
you
remember.
calling me over Instagram, and I had
Yeah,
just had my nurse come out to see me, and I couldn't
yeah,
actually
I
answer
remember
you
that.
straight away.
Yes, I remember that. I was scared. I even printed it and I signed my name, my signature on it, and I put it in an envelope
And it's
to a
horrible
couple
that you
people.
actually have to do that in America because you have no rights to protect yourself under those sort of situations, especially,
Yeah,
and this is just horrible because, and it's just because you're a woman.
yeah, yes. Women are treated so bad. I feel like in every country. For example, like um in
So you
like the
don't want to be
Middle
a
East,
woman
they
in
can't even.
Croatia.
Oh my God, you don't want to be a woman in the Middle East. They just
Exactly.
learn how to drive. They're just now learning how to drive. They're being able to drive. It's
And
crazy.
you couldn't even go over to the Middle East without wearing a full turban for your
Yes,
own safety.
yes. It's it's very frustrating to be a woman.
hmm But going back into the story now, so you've printed off all of these things in order, you've filled people in for your own safety and everything like that. And then the next step was to flee, wasn't it?
Okay, that was the first time. Okay, I've run away in our relationship several times. But
Yeah.
in
Why
this
did you run
part,
away previously? Before we get to
okay,
this now, what made you run away previously that actually made you decide that this was the last time you were to actually flee? Because I remember when I was divorced to my ex, it took me quite a few times before I did leave him. So these stories
yeah,
are very important, I believe.
they are. They are. And I thank you for bringing that up.
You're very welcome.
Okay,
I'm going to put another trigger warning in for this
this
as
is
well.
another
To
trigger warning.
continue.
Okay. So it was it was an abusive relationship.
Physical, emotional.
Both, all of the above, actually.
Yeah.
And here's the
So
thing
full.
is
So
that
you probably have full PTSD as well now because of it.
I do. And I did not know I was in an abusive relationship until I went to therapy. And the
That was
first
like my
day,
mother.
yeah, like the first day of therapy, she gave me like a piece of paper and she's like, I want you to like check mark everything that you're experiencing, everything that your ex is, the
So
actions that he's
is this
doing.
list like he's like ticking boxes of like being punched, being kicked, being mentally manipulated, having your finances taken control of? Like, is it a list like that, or is it a different kind of
Yeah.
list?
It's a list like that. It's also
Oh my God, that's intense. I kind of feel like
it
we need
was
one of those lists in Australia. We don't have those
oh
lists
my
in our
God.
therapy
I think
rooms.
I have it. I think I have it and I'll send it to you.
That sounds
And
good.
I think everybody should have this list like when they're dating around and see is the person you're dating, does they have this
You know
behavior?
what? Yeah, I would really love to have that list because I think we need
I'm
that
gonna
list.
forward
But
it.
let's get into this story now. So you've fled multiple times. You're now in therapy, just to recap for everything, and you're going through a domestic violence page fill out leaflet.
Yeah, so I didn't know I was in domestic violence. So here's the thing. He had terrible, terrible temper, absolutely no control. And in the very beginning, we've been together for 7 years. In the very beginning, it was only verbal.
Yeah,
He was only
it always
being
starts off
verbally.
verbal.
I didn't know. I didn't know this stuff until
You
the end.
never do. You never do.
I know. So, it started off verbal, and as the years progressed, it started to be him throwing stuff. And there were two occasions that he threw stuff at my face. And I remember writing in my diary, I am scared for my life that he's going to take a chair and throw it at me or like throw something heavy at me to hurt me. And the thing
hmm
is, like, I've told him several times, like, I need you to control your temper because that's a trigger for me. Um, like,
Well,
it makes
especially
me
like,
nervous.
and because you weren't aware that at the time when you were saying that, you were actually starting to get symptoms of PTSD and trauma response.
Exactly. Yes. The thing is that when I would tell him, like he would say, like, I'm sorry, things will change. And that's why I would keep coming back.
Mhm.
Like, and I think that's everybody, like when you're in love with someone so much and they say the
You
right
overlook
thing,
everything.
yeah, you just melt like butter. And like nobody wants to stay mad at somebody that you love. And so yeah, I tried leaving. Um, the other thing is that he would say he would like manipulate. And so when I would leave, so in those situations, I'm
Like
not the type of
gaslighting,
person.
essentially.
Yeah, and I didn't know what that was until my therapist educated me.
Yeah.
But I would leave. So whenever he would get angry, I would physically leave. Instead of screaming at him or provoking him, I would physically leave,
Yeah.
get some fresh air or go for a drive, because that's how I process things. I don't want to say the wrong things out of anger.
I,
I
I
don't want
process
to,
very
like,
much in the same way too, because I feel you
yeah,
have a wicked tongue like I do.
yes. And so that's how I would handle the situation. And then I would come home and he would say, I'm not a good wife. I'm not wife material because I left the situation. And so after hearing that for many years, we've been together for 7 years, you start to believe it, like that you're
You
not
do.
good enough.
It gets
And then,
ingrained. Anything after like 3 years becomes like a psychological response, and you just react to it normally because you are so overexposed to it.
yes. And again, I had no idea this stuff like happened. So he was programming and chipping away at my self-worth, my self-esteem. And I had no idea. I was slowly falling into this programming. And so it was to the point that I was being abused and I was um, immune to it. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know.
You were just
I
numb,
didn't.
I think's the word.
Yeah, I was
I'm
numb
just going
to
to
it.
throw a log in the fire, so keep talking.
Um, so yeah, so I had left like 5 different times in the relationship. Um, and this time, here I am, 3 months at this time, I was 3 months pregnant, working out, sleeping with one eye open because his racist mom has a death wish for me. Um, so I decided to run away to his extended family because I'm so close with them.
Yeah.
Um, I
And how did
decided
that
to
end
run
up
away.
working out? Did it work out effectively for you? Obviously, I know more of the story, but what
Yeah,
happened once you went to the extended family?
this is the first time during the pregnancy that I ran away.
Mhm.
Um, so the thing is that he didn't want to come with his pregnant wife to make sure that she got there
Do,
safely.
hmm
Thank you. So, so my mother came with me. My mother had no idea because I was so ashamed of being married to this person. It was humiliating at this point that I here's another part of the abuse. He isolated me from my family. And
And you
I
also
had no
not
idea.
only isolated from your family, you had to actually lie to your mother and your father about the communication between his parents and him to them. You
Yeah,
weren't just segregated from your family and isolated, you also had to lie to your family for the sake of his family.
yeah, exactly. Like my mother had absolutely no idea his family was racist. They had no idea of the hell, the 7 years of hell they put me through. They had no idea they wanted me deported. Like my
Well,
parents
you
had
can't be
absolutely
deported,
no
you're
idea.
native.
Yeah.
If anything, they
So
should be deported.
my parents had no idea any of this was going on. And again, I was just like so humiliated that I didn't have the courage or strength to even tell them what was really going on. Well, actually, my father witnessed this. That was a whole different story. My father witnessed it, and so they kind of went head to head. And
Mhm.
my ex put me in the position where it was like, it's me or your father. And I chose my ex. And so my father and I are estranged.
Mhm.
Again, a whole other story. But yeah, he isolated me from my family. And I had, again, being like the hopeless romantic, like I always chose him. I always did whatever he wanted to make him happy.
And then you
It was
finally
never good
realized
enough.
that you didn't have to. And what was the process that
Yeah.
allowed you to come to that realization? Because after you've fled to the family, you've gone back, there's been a big fight happening now.
I fled to his family. And while I was with his family, him and his mother were
think, just quickly,
concocting.
the live might cut off in 20 seconds because I've got
Oh my
17
God.
remaining at the top. If it does, we'll go straight back live again.
Okay.
But I didn't know there was a
I'm telling
time
you, it's a
limit on
long
this.
story.
It's a very long story, and that's why we're